I'm a documentary filmmaker and producer, and I'm also a creative coach. And so I coach people who consider themselves to be amateur or aspiring artists, and I help them get to that next stage in their career to become professionals. And we do, it's getting loud out there.
That's fine.
Okay, and we do that through, establishing their goals, figuring out what is their vision, using project management techniques, using time management, and then also mindset, because mindset is huge when you're an artist, especially fear. That's a big one. So did I answer all of your questions?
I think so. Yeah, yeah. So what, when you're talking to a creative person, you mentioned mindset and fear. What are some of these fears that these creative people have?
Well, I think with fear as an artist, it's not necessarily, you might not see it immediately as fear. It can manifest itself in different ways. So a big one is procrastination. That a lot of artists go through that, right? Writer's block. You sit down to create and nothing is coming, or you put something down on paper and it's not good enough and it's not what you're imagining in your head, and so want to go and do something that's a bit easier and go do the dishes and start vacuuming, and so then the procrastination builds up. So that is a type of fear. Trying to find the money to do the things you want. You might dismiss your idea and say, well, I can't afford to do that right now, and it's not that important. There's other things that are bigger priority, like my bills or taking care of your kids. Though it often feels like it shouldn't have as much importance in your life as, let me backtrack, that it's a secondary thing in your life rather than a primary thing.
This is the creative expression and the work involved.
It's just sort of how society defines it anyway, right? Like when you're growing up and as a kid, most parents will tell you, well, don't focus on the art. That should be a hobby, and focus on finding a job. And so that's immediately drilled into our minds. And so the art is always a secondary thing. It's of less importance. And especially since it doesn't make money, so it just doesn't feel like it has as much value. You have to build up a lot of confidence and a lot of and figure out what your vision is, I think, in order to stay driven, especially when you have a day job and then you're trying to figure out how to do this thing on the side and make time for it. And so a lot of these kinds of thoughts come up, and as I said, it's fear manifested in different ways. Especially that negative voice inside your head, because that negative voice is always there, right? Like, and it says different things to you. It's not good enough, or why are you bothering to do this, or there's more important things to be done. I'm trying to think of what else my negative voice often says to me. What's the point? There's always somebody out there. Look at that person. Their work is so much better than yours, and look at how old they are. They're younger than you, and look at what they've done, right? And this nattering voice does not stop. And so you have to strengthen that other side of yourself to push past it.
What's interesting is you've challenged your own fears as a creative person, and you've delivered a lot of great content. Speak to us about that transition, because you had a full-time job in the federal public service. I think you've worked for a decade
Where was it? Sorry?
You worked in the federal public service?
Yeah.
Yes, for a decade, and you left that security to transition to pursue visual storytelling. Speak to us about what happened there and why you left security, job security, and that whole, which is a big culture here in Ottawa-Gatineau, in the National Capital Region. Everyone is very risk averse and would rather, I'm generalizing here, folks, but would rather suspend their sense of satisfaction for paycheck and job security.
Yeah, I mean, it took a while to get to that stage, because first it was going back to being a kid, and I was in high school, and I had become so competitive with art and anything, or even writing. And those are things I was interested in, right? So drawing, I really enjoyed drawing, but there were so many people around me that were so much better at it. And then we were getting graded in art class, and my grade, maybe that day I didn't have as many sometimes she would give A plus 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 plus, right? And I had less A pluses, or I had an A minus. And so I was very judgmental of myself from a very young age, and I was already thinking from a young age, how do I make money doing this? It wasn't even so much I enjoy doing this, but how can I be the best at it and start making money at it? And
well, that's cool. You were thinking about that at a young age.
At a really young age.
That's pretty cool, because many people who create, I don't think, associate revenue generation and monetization.
But I think it killed that spirit, because by the time high school was finishing, I was completely burnt out. And I thought, well, I'm ready for university now. I'm going to do my arts degree where I'm going to be writing a lot of essays. And I didn't view that as creative at all. I just thought it's essay writing. It's just pushing out, critical thinking. And so I was excited about that. I was thinking there's no pressure to make a cover page for this and worry about doing something like that. And so I completely cut out being creative for a long time, or thinking about it in any capacity. But again, university, feeling very down. And those thoughts kept coming to me, thinking, and I would write in my journal. I was very angry about a lot of things, first of all, but I was writing in my journal, I want to be creative, but I don't know how. And it felt like, even then I felt like silly writing it and thinking, well, who am I to talk about being creative? What have I done that's really that creative in my life up to this point? And but it just kept coming back. And then again, I thought, university's finished. Now I'm going to start working. It's going to be easier because I don't have those long hours you have in university. But again, same thoughts, right? I'd come home from my literal 9 to 5, and I think, is this it? Is this what life is? This is what people do, where you just go to work, you put in your time. It's frankly not that challenging, and from my view, compared to university, I wasn't being challenged so much. And then it was, again, thinking, okay, well, I need to take up some kind of hobbies or take classes. So, doing photography classes or drawing classes. But it was just this relentless thoughts that wouldn't escape me. And finally, my friend sent me a copy of this book called The Artist's Way. And the whole point of that book is for people that were like me, who had lost touch or had always wanted to have art as part of their life, but they didn't know how to get it back or where to even begin. And so it basically takes the 12 steps from AA and it applies them to art.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's different stages, right? There's I haven't read it in a long time, but one of the sections is on jealousy and thinking about, what does it mean when you're jealous of another person's success? And what is it that her argument is that you are desiring that thing that they have because you want it for yourself. So think of it in that way. And so it's really changing a lot of your mindset around, and then of course your inner critic. And so working through all of that. And so working through all of that really, and just reading multiple career books, finally it all started to click that, filmmaking was something that had always been part of my life, or enjoying movies or enjoying the arts. It had always been a central theme in my life. And so, I needed to get it back. And I started looking into how to get involved in film outside of work and building up my experience outside the public service. And then it got to the point where I'd built up my experience so much that I was able to secure a full 9 to 5 job in film, or in broadcasting rather. And that was when I decided to leave, was, okay, here's a secure 9 to 5 job. I'm officially going to leave the public service for this. But that wasn't enough either. So then I decided to leave that too.
So this is more or less your second transition career-wise, yeah?
Yeah.
But in the first transition, you actually delivered some content in the form of, I believe you did a documentary. Do you want to speak to us about some of the products you put out content-wise?
Yeah, so the first foray into filmmaking was, well, first of all, I just started getting ideas. And after I went through the Artist's Way book, the exercises in it really helped ideas to flourish in my brain about what was possible, about what I could do. And so the first idea, it wasn't that, I want to get into filmmaking. It was, I want to do a documentary about Ottawa. And so I don't know how to do a documentary. And But then after I did that one, then I wanted to do more because I found I was really attracted to documentary filmmaking. So I did the one on Ottawa, the city that fun forgot, ? Then I did another one for TVO. TVO, every year they do a short doc contest. And they have a theme that's associated with it. So then the next one I did was on my relationship with my husband when he was going through as a recovering alcoholic. So I submitted that, and that was shortlisted. And then I did another one again for TVO.
That was very powerful. I saw that one. Actually, I stumbled on. I think I told you, right? I stumbled on it. I was like, oh my god! Like it was very as far as because it's documentary, it's raw storytelling, it's real, and I was like, man, this is very, very powerful, and I don't know, I really enjoyed it is what I'm saying, and I think I mentioned that to you. I told you.
I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah, no, it's very. I think those sorts of raw, honest stories, I think, resonate with people because they're raw, they're honest, and I think you used some voiceover of both of you talking, and then you use that. You know what I mean? You using that treatment with B-roll of you guys in the living room or in the kitchen moving. I liked it. It was storytelling 101. It was raw. It was real. I guess that's where I'm getting at. But sorry, continue.
No, that's fine. No, thank you. And then the next one I did again for TVO was on this woman in Ottawa who had received an anonymous hate letter, like a racist letter, telling her to go back home. And so I wanted to explore. She'd already done everything that you're supposed to do. She'd gone to the media. She'd gone to the police. So I wanted to explore, okay, well, once you do all of that, then what? And because it's really not as straightforward, I think, as people think when you get a note like that in the mail and the process that's involved. And really, how do you... It changes you as a person, and so I wanted to explore that because I thought that was something that people don't really talk about. So again, that was shortlisted. That was shown on TVO. It was called Go Back Home. And what else? I mean, and then I made other shorts that were part of. They were challenges. Like there's the Dogme challenge that IFCO does every year. So I participated in that, to be able to use a 16 millimeter camera. And there was another similar challenge where we using a film camera, and I just wanted to try it and experiment with it. And so I've done a few shorts, and then the last big project that I did was The Secret Lives of Public Servants as a documentary web series. And so that went out the whole series was put out by the end of October. And now I have a whole bunch of other ideas that I want to do, but I don't want to move forward unless I have financing of some sort, because I don't want to put my own funds into my projects anymore. It's too risky.
Fair enough. What aspect of those sorts of projects do you thrive the most in? Because there's many layers to it, right? From the production, coordination, to the idea generation, script writing, so on and so forth. What is your favorite role within all that?
Yeah, I mean, I just love coming up with the idea so much. An idea will occur to me, and then I might start seeing the visuals of how it might play out, or I might see a bit of the script in my mind. And so I get super excited, and I'll think, I don't think anything like this has been done before, and I just want to go. I want to do it. That's the thing with grants. You have to sit around and wait to see if you can do something. And that's partly why I would fund my own projects, because I'm just so excited. Like, come on, let's go. Let's get this moving. But that's not how it works in film. You have to. It usually takes a while.
Sure.
But I just love that. I love fleshing out the idea, and that, because when you at that very beginning stage, there's so many possibilities of how it could play out or how it could turn out, and I mean, and then there's that in between stage where it's starting to become its own thing, and that part always makes me nervous, because it's always. Well, first of all, you want to get it as close to what you'd originally imagined, but that's not always possible, just due to practical reasons. and then you're thinking, okay, so we can't do that. We'll substitute it with this, and it's not quite that original idea. So then I start getting a bit worried at that stage. But then as you're finishing it off, especially with film, and this is why I really like film, is that it's such a collaborative medium that you start seeing it becomes its own entity, and you start seeing how all the different players that were involved with it, what they brought to the table. And yeah, and I just love that, and then I value it for that, for what it's become.
What part of that process do you enjoy the least?
I think because it seems so easy when you see it in your head, but when you start mapping it out and thinking, okay, well, we need to do this and we need to coordinate this, and you're trying to organize everyone's schedules, and it gets so drawn out that that part makes me nervous because there's just so many things that could go wrong too. And it's a bit unpredictable, and so you're trying to minimize the unpredictability of everything as much as possible. But yeah, that, like, basically the whole in-between part, it makes me so nervous. Just trying to coordinate everything, making sure, especially when you're working with other people, do people get what you're saying? Are you communicating the right way with them? Like, I'm thinking about all of that, and I do tend to be really hard on myself, so I'm kind of judging and studying all of that, and it could always be better, right? Or the way that I manage things on that day. Oh, why didn't I think of this or do this? But I think part of that, again, that's a bit of that fear, right? And where I'm judgmental of myself. But part of it does change over time too. The more you do things, the more practice you get. I think certain things will come a bit easier to me the next time around. So, and I'm learning as I go as well. So, of course, the steps that I might have had an issue with or found more challenging earlier on, they're not going to be as much of a challenge later on.
Well, because you've confronted, is it fair to say it's because you've delivered a project, you've confronted your fear, and you were able to execute, and you're continuously learning. So you have this positive momentum, forward motion to, telling a story, delivering the content, and so on. It sounds to me like that from as you're describing project to project, going from that original documentary to the short form docs and so on. What do you get out of storytelling and being creative? What does it mean to you personally and professionally? And I'm asking, I'll tell you why I'm asking, because I follow you on social media, and I see these posts, and most of them I find, we follow a bunch of people on social media. I find your posts are almost, in a way, pushing people into a conversation about creativity, right? A conversation about how does one engage with the content around them. I think I saw there was a recent post about kind of magazines do hairdressers read, right? So and then there was a few other ones, and I'm like, man, she's like, this is a creative spirit here, right? Yeah, I get the impression, like, no, seriously, you always seem to be on that creative milieu. What does creativity mean for you?
Oh my God.
And what does it mean to exercise being creative?
Yeah. I mean, to me, that's what a meaningful life for me is, because I cannot tell you. I mean, when I'm in the midst of creating something or moving a project forward, like, that's what drives me, right? That makes me feel like I am contributing, I want to contribute something to the world. And
sure.
So, because when I'm not doing those things and I'm doing the day-to-day and I'm doing the errands, and I get down when
sure.
I do that, and I wish I didn't, because that's just part of life, but it's just so boring, right? And so, yeah, so I just, it excites me. The idea excites me, and I think especially with film, because there's so many different types of artistic elements involved that, and then and the fact that it's collaborative as well, I really enjoy that. Like I truly believe in collaboration, because for me, especially on the technical front, that does not come naturally or easily to me. So I think I'm just naturally inclined to, especially seeing other people's talents and seeing what they can bring to the table. It's almost like, I described it once to someone as being a conductor, a music conductor, right? It's like, okay, I need a little bit of that and a little bit of that, and then you bring all those things together. I truly enjoy looking at someone and going, they're so talented in that capacity, and I could see them bringing this to the film, and this is the element that they're going to bring to it. So yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, for me, it's all about how do I find meaning in my life, and what is my purpose for being here. And this is a thing that drives me, but at the same time, I want other people to get something out of it and to feel like something has changed for them. And I think that's what a lot of documentary filmmakers want at the end of the day. But it's important for me, for whatever films that I do, to try to connect it to a community and to create conversation around it. Is that the conversation doesn't begin and end with watching the film. And I really like having those screenings in person and have a dialogue about what people have seen on screen. I think that's super important.
Having dove into this, creative world and creating content and so on and so forth. Now you've transitioned to coaching as well, because it sounds like that question that you're asking, that personal question of what it is that one wants to do with their life, how do they create meaning, it resonates not just with you, but maybe a lot of people, especially, there's a ton of podcasts online that just focus on that, right? How does one create meaning in one's life? Because people are bored, people are maybe not satisfied. Why did you decide to transition into the coaching and educating and challenging people to lead more creative lives?
Part of it is that I don't want someone to go through that same kind of struggle I went through for so many years, where I felt so alone and isolated in that struggle. And maybe I didn't know how to articulate it to other people, but it just felt like, I don't know what to do here, and this is so hard, and I don't want to go back to school to study film. It's so much money, like, what do I want to do with my life? Like, all those questions, and feeling so down so many days. So yeah, I'd really like to help other people that might be out there who are like me, who feel like they're, because I even now, when I look out there to see, is there some kind of coaching like this available for people who, they don't necessarily want to do this thing full time, but they have ideas, they're driven, they want to put out a project of some sort, but they don't necessarily have the resources, they don't necessarily have the skills yet, and they're trying to figure out what is it that it takes to make it happen. And I've had people come to me and say, well, how did you do it? And so now I can say, yeah, I can tell you how I did it. And these are the steps that you can take. And yeah, you don't have to be alone with this struggle.
How do they react when you tell them the steps? And what's the initial reaction? Are they overwhelmed? How do they react?
I think people know, they'll say, well, I don't know, and I'm still not sure what I want, and I think I kind of want to do this, but, am I allowed to want that, or is that possible for me? Can I call myself a filmmaker? What? And there's a lot of insecurities there, and I think they know what they want, but they're afraid to say it out loud. And a lot of people aren't always fully able to articulate all those thoughts that are in their head either, right? So so it's interesting.
What are some of the, if you don't mind giving us an idea of some of the exercises you lead clients through in dealing with that question of, hey, what is it that you want to do, or how do you want to lead a creative life? What are some of the
Yeah.
the
Well, I
exchanges.
mean, a big thing that's helped me a lot is creating a vision board of some sort, and it doesn't have to be something formal, right? But it could even just be, what I have is a Microsoft Word document and some images in there, and then a few statements and affirmations about, who do I, even if I'm not that right now, who do I want to be, and then put that in the present tense, and things like, I deserve to be happy, or I deserve to be paid for what I ask for, or just so to reinforce that self-confidence, and to review that every few days as well, so that it's that whole idea of visual manifestation, right? That if you can say it or see it on paper, that your subconscious will be thinking about that in the background at all times, so that you start attracting the things in your life that you want. And yeah, it's a little bit woo-woo kind of thing, but
Not wrong with that.
there's definitely a psychological benefit to that. So that's really important. And then, on a more practical side, it's looking at someone and saying, okay, well, what is a project that we can work on together for you, so that by the end of 6 weeks, you feel like you've accomplished something through working with me. And let's figure out, what exactly is your goal here? What do you want to or taking this project, let's break it up. So really, project management techniques, right? So if you want to create a web series, what are all the steps? What is involved in all that? Let's map out what are all the tasks that are involved. And then another thing that's really important is networking, right? So, going out there and talking to different people, especially people that you admire, and because, if you're not going to go to school for something like this, then that's one of the ways that I learned things, was setting up informational interviews with people that I admired, reaching out to them through LinkedIn, or, and setting up those conversations. So I think that's extremely important. And then also finding your community and having a supportive community out there. And so if you don't have that community, where can you go? How can you start reaching out and meeting people? Yeah. Oh, and also, creating a schedule for yourself that works, especially when you have a day job. So sitting down and looking at, how do you spend your day to day? How much time are you sitting in front of Netflix, right? How can you reduce that time? How can you, and it's not even just creating time, but who are the people in your life that drain your energy? What are the tasks that you do on any given week that are draining your energy? And
man, those are very tough questions.
Yeah, but
like they can be life-changing questions, and I'm not exaggerating, because if you do an audit of a weekly audit,
yeah.
of where your energy goes in terms of where you're putting your energy towards which activities, and who's hijacking your sense of well-being, or
it's so true. Yeah, because there's so many things we feel like we should do, but then when you step back to think about, what does that do for your mental well-being? Yeah, maybe you don't want to spend time with those types of people in your life, or reduce the amount of time involved. And meditating is another exercise that I also try to do on a daily basis. And something that the Artist Way was really helpful. Like the number one exercise, if you're going to take away any exercise from that, is every day free flow writing, three pages every day, just free flow, so that you reduce the amount of time you spend judging yourself. And doing that, I don't do it anymore, but it's sort of like meditating. But basically, when you start doing that, ideas will start coming to you. Because it's just free flow. You're getting out all that stuff that's stuck in your brain, that chatter, and it's creating space for that other part of your brain that needs that space and to relax as well, to let your so that's how a lot of my ideas started to come when I started doing that exercise.
What are some of the as far as interacting with people and engaging them in conversations and clients and so on, what's the number one commonality? I think you might have answered this before. Well, what's the common theme with most people that come to you, or that you've spoken to, in regards to addressing, hey, how do I lead a more creative life? Like, what is that common thread, or is it, Yeah.
Yeah, it's fear, you know,
Yeah.
and the insecurities and thinking they're not good enough or it's not important enough in their life. Yeah, it often comes back to that. And that's actually why I'm thinking of doing a course or presentation through Facebook Live where we go through that, and I go through some exercises that they can do to try to reduce the amount of fear that's blocking them and preventing them from moving forward with their projects or their ideas.
In a city like Ottawa and Gatineau, what are some of the profile? Like if you could describe the average potential client, what sector are they working in? What do they do?
Well, in Ottawa,
Yeah,
I mean,
I know. I'm
definitely-
generalizing.
Yeah, I mean, in Ottawa, it's definitely the public sector. So many people are here. But I think even it's just really anybody with a 9 to 5. Those are the types of people that I want to help because usually, and especially in this city, the artists that live here are people that don't want to be starving artists. You know, like they might do something on the side, but they want to make sure they have a really stable income so that they're comfortable being a bit more risky on the side and outside of work. So, but I think there's a lot of scared people in this city too that are completely miserable in their jobs, but it's so hard to leave it because, you know, especially when you're indeterminate, you're not really at risk of losing your job anytime soon. And then, you know, you get all the benefits and you get the pension, which is so rare in any other industry. And so a lot of people might start pursuing something on the side and they want to start working on it more full time. So they'll take a leave of absence for a year. But it's, you know, what is it going to take for them to really leave it and say goodbye to it forever? Because it's there, because it's at home that you can always go back to. Why would you stay away from it? You're always going to want to go back to it. So I think most people in the public service, like they're always going to go back to the public service. They're never going to leave because, like on paper, why would you, right?
Sure.
Especially if you're not that miserable at it. If it's you know, it's something you can go to on a day-to-day basis and pull a decent income from. There's no reason for you to leave it. I think you'd have to get in a pretty dire straits in order for you to say, I am not interested in this at all, and I want to give it up.
What's, in your opinion, what's more detrimental to one's health, mental, physical, spiritual? Is it comfort or fear?
That's a good question. What's more detrimental to mental health?
In the long run.
You mean, well, you're talking about more like physical comfort, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think physical comfort would be more detrimental because it'll be a battle. But then, you know, part of the reason that you're keeping yourself physically comfortable is because you're scared. So they're
But scared of what? No, I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
But like, what are
scared
people
of having that safety net, right? And taking a risk because, okay, like think about all the things with doing something creative. It's so hard to monetize it.
Sure.
There isn't a guarantee of a steady paycheck.
But beyond all that, I mean, like I'm with you on that. I get it, but like fear of failure, fear of it almost. But like it's almost like, you know, the state of being comfortable is what we all, I guess, people want. But in that comfort, it's almost like there's no satisfaction. There's no.
You're not experiencing ups and downs, you mean?
Yeah, it's like people are almost content being almost mediocre in a way. They're not challenging themselves. They're not growing. They're not developing. They're not. So isn't that almost as dangerous? Do you know what I mean? Like, what's the point? Isn't failing part of the
Yeah, right. Of
process?
having a meaningful life,
Sure.
right? Yeah. Yeah. I definitely think so. Because I mean, I'm nervous right now. You know, I left a steady income and a steady place to go to every day with no real plan in place about what I was going to do. So yeah, I'm definitely in that mode where I'm being challenged, and there's some days where it's harder than others for sure. But yeah, I do think that is because, well, for me, the way I look at it is the way I was looking at it was, well, when I'm old, when I'm, you know, that's what they always say, right? Like
Sure.
when you're gonna on your deathbed, what kind of a life do you want to have lived,
Sure.
right? And so that was part of my thinking was I don't see myself in any of these positions for that many years. I don't want to spend my time in one place for 20 years where I don't really feel like I'm growing. That's
Sure.
the other thing. It's not just being comfortable, but also, yeah, I guess it goes back to your point. You're not being challenged, right? And yeah, to me, that is really important. I need to be challenged because I would just feel so mentally exhausted at the end of the day because I wasn't being challenged. And so it felt to me like I was dying inside, and it was really depressing. And so yeah, for
Dude,
sure.
you know, I think a lot of people can relate to that state of feeling like they're dying inside. They're not growing. They're not expressing themselves. They're not. They're being chicken shits, or excuse my language. You know what I'm saying? Like they're
Yeah.
I've had so many conversations with creative people who've just almost given up on their you know what I mean, on their ability
Yeah.
to pursue. But it's almost like I think it was Khalil Gibran. I think he had this one line from a poem of his that stuck to me years ago. It was like the lust for comfort murders the passion of the soul.
Yeah.
I don't know the the rest of the poem, but I remember that
Yeah.
the lust for comfort like murders the passion of the soul, and
Yeah.
I'm interpreting that as like for some people that I know on the creative spectrum or whatever, those involved in creative industries, it's like, you know, they trade in the comfort and they're spiritually, creatively speaking, broken. It's like they're
Yes.
just zombies, you know.
Yeah.
And this is why I find the work you're doing as a creative coach fascinating, especially in a city like Ottawa. I think there's a huge demand. I know that there's a professional development stream that people can engage with, and this is part of it, but I think there's a huge demand for that sort of creative therapy, because quite frankly, art and being creative is therapeutic as well. When you draw, when you dance, whatever it is that you do,
Yeah.
whatever formality. I'm generalizing, but I think
Yeah.
there's certainly a big demand for that work.
Yeah.
If people want to admit it or not. I mean, like,
Yeah, I definitely think so. Yeah.
how would you describe Ottawa in terms of its openness to creatively engaging with individuals like yourself, with your background and your experience and so on?
Yeah, there isn't a lot. I mean, there's a lot of classes, and there's of course a college and universities that you can go to study filmmaking or study, I don't know, creative writing or painting. But yeah, in terms of idea incubation, no,
Mhm.
there really isn't anything. I mean, and there's a film co-ops, but they focus more on the production side or post-production side, and what we really don't have is that pre-production side, and yeah, and how do you get basically what I'm trying to do, right, is
Mhm.
I want to create that fill in that gap of how do you get your project off the ground. What do you need to do to make it happen, and
Mhm.
and helping someone through that process. So no, we don't have a lot of that, and there isn't financial incentive to invest in things like that. Like I went to there was a session with sort of a 1.0 or a Q&A with investors, and I was asking them, what would it take for you to invest in a film? And they said, oh yeah, that's really tough in Canada. That's something you'd have to go to Los Angeles for. That's where people take that big risk investing in film. And so I'm really curious about that, to understand what it takes for someone to throw down, you know, millions of dollars into a film project. But yeah, we don't have that in Ottawa for sure. It's completely lacking here. And that's why people move to the bigger cities, like especially Toronto, right?
Right.
That's where there's more, there is a bigger possibility to make, if you're someone with more ambition, to make your ideas a reality.
Do you find, as far as opportunities, do people create opportunities, or are opportunities there for the traditional way of like, hey, applying for one?
You mean grants?
Sure, but because I'm listening to what you're saying in regards to, there's no investment in terms of. On the creative industry side, where you're talking about that situation where you asked, hey, well, what would it take for someone to invest in films? It sounds to me like there's possibility where you might be able to create, opportunities just based on your networking and you're collaborating with, maybe on a smaller budget scale, but you're still creating, right? I mean, everything starts. Step by step. And it sounds to me like, and based on the work you've already done, I've been at screening at your event, and it was impressive, man. It was momentum is building. So it's like, I see it possible. You know what I mean? I see, I guess what I'm saying is I'm hearing opportunities here for cross collaboration with different.
When there isn't, if people are doing it for free, then yeah, you can create that opportunity. But in terms of anyone getting paid for it, that's where
that's the challenge.
It's much less likely. And yeah, that's what I've been exploring. Like I was saying, I want to try to establish partnerships, or just see, what is it going to take for someone to say, our audience needs something like this, and so let's do a video series on this topic. Yeah, that's something I'm still trying to figure out.
Man, I think a lot of people are trying to figure that out. And even for some of the work that I've done in collaborating with creative people here in town, it's like it's the question of financing and monetizing, and it's but it's exciting, isn't it?
It's absolutely exciting. Yeah, first of all, you have to have an audience, right? So that's what they care about at the end of the day. If they're going to throw down money for something, they want to know that there's an audience, there's people that are hungry for the content. And so that's partly something that I'm working on as well with through my coaching, and just some of the content that I'm putting out, is I like to create a specific audience and clientele for everything I work on, so they move with me with every project, and I'm not trying to recreate it each time.
Last question for you. What does it mean now to be equally involved in actively, creatively coaching people? What does that provide you personally, on a personal level?
Well, like I said, to have someone say, wow, I'm amazed that you got me from point A to point B, right? And the fact that we do that over 6 weeks, that I shortened the time frame that it took for them, where they would be struggling if they were doing it on their own, that to me is really rewarding. Yeah, to not see someone go through that same lengthy struggle that I went through. I think that would be wonderful. And also to help people. I want to work with people in all kinds of cities. I don't want to just focus on Ottawa, but sort of pushing people out the door with their vision. That's incredibly exciting, to be able to get them out there and putting it out, because otherwise it's just sitting in their heads, right? And they're not feeling like they're moving forward. So it could be exciting.
Where can we find you online?
So my website is amenjafri.com. It's amenjafri.com. And I just created a new Instagram account just for myself. So I'm on there as, I think, Amen_Jafri, or Amen, I can't remember now. Amen Jafri, I don't know. And then Twitter, it's Amen_Jafri. But anyway, it's through, if you go on my website, it has the links to my LinkedIn and my YouTube and any other social media too.
Cool. Well, it was very nice speaking with you, and hope to talk to you again.
Yeah, you too. Thanks, Garmamie.